Happy New Year, everyone. I wish you all an amazing year filled with adventures, great music, and success in everything you do. I took a couple of weeks off to reconnect with my loved ones and also recharge my internal batteries, but right now I'm fully powered and I'm ready to hit some eardrums. And to kickstart the 2026 season, I decided that there is no better way than to start with an amazing sounding DAC. After all, that is what DAC man does best. So let's check this Eversolo DAC Z10, their best DAC and preamp to date. Let's dive in. First things first, just look at it. I think that the words are really unnecessary when you have the Z10 on your table. It's simply beautiful from whatever angle you are looking at it. It was crafted from aviation-grade aluminum and glass, nothing more and nothing less. The case was CNC machined, having this matte black finish, and we have a thick glass sheet covering its entire front panel. And yeah, it's a massive 8.8-inch touchscreen, and before you ask, this is a bigger screen compared to what we have on their T8 streamer or DMP-A10. Actually, this is the biggest touchscreen they ever put on any unit. And if you don't have the fancy metal remote control, no worries, as you can control it with your thumbs. Speaking of which, this is the same remote control that we already saw on their DMP-A10. It's made out of stainless steel, I believe. It's slim, but it's a high quality remote, so it's all good. What I like most about this unit is that we do not have one single button on its front panel, although there is one hidden button under the volume knob that turns on or off the unit. I like simple things with stealthy looks, and this guy gets top points for one of the stealthiest looking DAC that is quite modern looking as well. As for controls, this guy has it all, everything really, every digital input you can think of, and yes, including an ARC input for cinephiles. You can even hook up an external 50 ohm or 75 ohm clock generator if you want to further elevate its sound. On the analog side, you can see a pair of RCA and XLR outputs, but also analog inputs, because you know what, you can use the DAC Z10 also as a standalone analog preamp for a power amplifier or maybe for a pair of monoblock amplifiers. Okay guys, now let's check what makes it special in my view, because I believe the DAC Z10 is quite different compared to what I have tested in 2025 or 2024. It's similar in a few key areas, but overall this is quite unique. I never seen something like that, especially in a unit costing less than $2,000 US. First of all, this is an oversampling Delta Sigma DAC based on the flagship AKM combo, meaning AK4191 Delta Sigma modulator and also AK4499EX DAC chips. What makes it different is that we have two DAC chips, so one per your left and one per your right channel, meaning that we have a lower channel crosstalk and also a higher dynamic range compared to units that use just one single DAC chip. Now, what makes this unit quite different compared to many others is everything surrounding those DAC chips, like the clocking system, the output stage, the preamp stage, the volume control, and also the power supply implementation, all of which is quite impressive considering that we're dealing with a DAC costing less than $2,000 US. Now, what makes a great preamp great? First of all, it's a very good volume control, volume implementation. So we have 12 on-run relays per channel, so 24 relays in total, and you can hear them clicking once you start turning up or down the volume. And lastly, we have an amazing output stage or preamp stage that can add up to 10 dB of analog gain, and all of that is made mostly from discrete components, so yeah, that is already quite impressive. The clocking system is also quite unusual considering that, again, we have a DAC costing less than $2,000 US, since we're dealing with an oven control OCXO atomic clock, and only this part alone is pretty costly. And besides this, an FPGA is controlling every digital input, checking the data stream and the clocking for optimum performance. Last but not least, we do not have one or two power supplies. We have 3 linear transformers, one for your left channel, one for your right channel, and the third one is powering everything else. I believe it's UI, the digital section, so its noise floor is actually very low. The wall unit is generating just 42 microvolts, which is actually very low considering that we're dealing with thousands of components. This is a very low noise unit, and I'm pretty sure that will have a beneficial impact on the sound quality. In a nutshell, this is everything you need to know about this unit. So let's hit some eardrums and let's check its sound in an overkill way. First of all, let me just say that after owning and using a 27,000 euro DAC every single day, my expectations for a unit costing 14 times lower are usually not very high. I did, however, have plenty of surprises along the way, and there were many times when not so costly DACs sounded very close to much pricier converters. And that is really the story of today's unit, of the Eversolo DAC Z10. After a long vacation, I needed about 2 days to recalibrate my ears, to start listening to music again, to get those goosebumps, to understand my system once again. And once I started swapping my Rockna DAC with the Eversolo DAC Z10, I realized how good the DAC Z10 was, really, because Eversolo clearly improved everything I knew about the DAC Z8, and there is very little in common between the DAC Z8 and the DAC Z10. There is just one thing in common, I believe, and that is the powerful low-end delivery. The bass output is quite impressive on both of these units. I believe the DAC Z10 is even more punchy and stronger in the bass compared to their DMP A10 flagship all-in-one device. The bass output is really standing out on the DAC Z10. It hits hard, and quantity-wise it will impress you right away. I was somehow expecting a playful bass delivery, seeing those 3 linear transformers and also a pretty impressive output stage, but my expectations were exceeded, and to be frank with you, from the units I tried between 2 and 3 kilobucks, I believe only the Gustard X30 and R30 had a similar effect on me, sounding punchy and, dare I say, even hard slamming in the bass. Over the years I learned that when the bass gets right, there are many other benefits, like for example dynamics, which are very impressive and important not only with bass heavy music but also with orchestral music, with classical music as well. For example, when a big drum is hitting in a classical music, for example, you don't need only to hear it, you also need to feel it with your whole body. But that is only possible with speakers, headphones, amplifiers and DACs that are capable of unleashing and delivering these powerful dynamics. Their DMP A10 all-in-one was pretty close, but not really on the same page with the DAC Z10 in terms of dynamics, bass slam. The topping D900, while I believe it's an amazing kit of engineering and it sounds super resolving and clean, it was nowhere near as punchy or as fun sounding like the Z10. A few days ago I received a couple of Super Audio CDs that I bought, and immediately I started listening to them via the Onyx XTS20 Super Audio CD transport, via my Rockna DAC and via the Eversolo DAC Z10. And first of all, let me tell you that I believe if you want to collect physical media, I believe that the best sounding right now are Super Audio CDs. There is simply more information. I can hear additional nuances on the Super Audio CD layer compared to the CD layer. Dynamic range is higher, and thus the music is more relaxed, it's more effortless sounding, the grain is going away, but more importantly, the Soundstage is expanding quite a lot on the Super Audio CD layer, and it's somehow flatter and more 2D sounding on the CD layer. What I want to say about this is that there are not so many DACs that can show you this amazing and huge difference between the CD layer and Super Audio CD layer. You need to have a really good DAC that can show you these differences. The resolution, the effortlessness and also the soundstage gains and this special information that is happening on that Super Audio CD layer. The good part is that I can easily perceive these differences with the DAC Z10, something that I cannot hear with many lower tiered DACs of today. The sound was getting much deeper via Super Audio CD, and also a few sounds started appearing behind my speakers, which is actually quite unusual, and a few notes were much closer to my face, so clearly the depth was actually improving quite a lot, and I could hear that easily on the DAC Z10. Now, I'm not saying that it plays exactly on the same level with the Rockna, because that will be a lie. I'm saying that it can show me a clear difference between different media types, between CDs and Super Audio CDs, and between live music and studio recordings. And I can hear that pretty easily, and I believe it does soundstage and stereo separation and imaging very well. The third part that I was sincerely kind of expecting was a great tonal balance of the DAC Z10 that would infuse some meat on the bone, will put some meat on the bone in the bass, will add some sweetness and warmth in the mid-range, and also remove some grain, some listening fatigue, and some brightness from the upper treble. And that is really the case with the DAC Z10. When you consider that everything is powered by 3 linear transformers that lower the noise floor considerably, we have an overkill output stage based mostly on discrete components, and of course we have 2 flagship grade AKM silicon. It's no secret to anyone that you are constantly asking yourself how the next track will sound on the DAC Z10. It doesn't try to replicate the sound of modern DACs that I've heard last year. Actually, it goes with that more like vintage, old school sound that is all about, getting in the mood, having some fun times, getting that smooth and relaxing character. And that is how the DAC Z10 is really sounding. I mean, it's still quite a linear sounding DAC. It's quite honest, transparent, detailed, but it doesn't try to impress you with this technical performance. It will highlight mostly the beautiful overtones, the inner textures that will be boosted. And while linear and honest, I believe the music won't sound flat or boring on the DAC Z10. And I think this is the greatest skill a standalone DAC should have. Make me wonder how the rest of the music will sound. I know some reviewers hate the term musical, but I'm going to use it today. I believe from the entire Eversolo portfolio, this is the one that I would call musical, involving, and fun sounding. The last part won't surprise you at all. I left it for last because I was expecting this kind of performance. When you consider that we have 2 DAC chips, one for your left and right channel, everything is powered by 3 linear transformers, we have that powerful FPGA, we have that oven-controlled atomic clock. It's no secret to anyone that this one easily brings the information up to the surface, and it sounds uber detailed and very transparent. For some of you, this is the most important skill a DAC should have, to bring up to the surface as much information as possible from digital to analog. For me, this is as important as its tonality and dynamics, as without an awesome detail retrieval, I would constantly ask myself why I cannot hear the things I hear on my own DAC. Although Eversolo put a lot of effort into making it more natural, more organic sounding compared to what they did in the past, all of this naturalness is actually coming from a lower noise floor and from a higher dynamic range that let the music be more natural, more organic, and much closer to what we hear in real life. So yes, I believe this one is not just a little bit more natural and more organic, but also more resolving sounding compared to their past devices like DAC Z10, like DMP-A8 or DMP-A10. Its resolution is impressive, and I'd say that it outperforms some of my favorites that I had in 2024 and 2025, like Live Harmony, for example. It also outperforms the DMP-A10 all-in-one, which is about 2 times more expensive. I believe this one is just doing better when trying to unearth, extra information. Dynamics are better as well. And if you already own a decent hi-fi streamer, CD or Super Audio CD transport, then I think a dedicated DAC like the Z10 makes a lot more sense. I do, however, understand why some of you might go with an all-in-one device like their DMP series. I mean, I'm not the only one having a wife and a kid fighting for their personal space around the house. The DAC Z10 has one little feature that sadly no other hi-fi reviewer talked about. I'm about that little quarter-inch headphone jack that you can find on its front panel. So yes, it does have a headphone amplifier inside that provides up to 1 watt of power per channel in 16 or 32 ohms. It has 3 gain settings, low, medium and high. It also has an auto detect for the gain settings, but I usually turn off that feature because I like to use high gain with my headphones, which are quite high performance headphones, I believe. It does not try to compete with dedicated headphone amplifiers. I want to state it right from the start because we have just 1 watt of power. So it drives some of my headphones, but it cannot drive some of the most demanding loads out there. It was, however, driving my T+A Solitaire P, the HD800S, and many other headphones out there. Everything that I've heard via my loudspeakers, like its organic character, its natural tonality, moved over to my headphones. But at the same time, the bass was no longer as playful, it was no longer as punchy, and I'm blaming the headphone amplifier that cannot provide as much current like these headphones, for example, demand. So I believe it's okay, it sounds good as a headphone amplifier, just don't expect to sound like an world-class headphone amplifier. For that, you'll need to buy an external headphone amplifier. The maximum volume I could reach with these headphones was minus 10 dB, so I had 10 extra dB until reaching maximum volume, and mind you, I'm listening at around 100 dB, so it was very loud. We have plenty of headroom remaining, and if you're using some less demanding headphones, like for example Mezi 99 Classics, then the headroom would be much you So I believe it works decent, even okay with a couple of headphones, but don't expect it to outperform some dedicated desktop headphone amplifiers. For that, you'll need to buy a separate headphone amplifier. And the last thing that I wanted to do is to remove my Chord Electronics Ultima Pre-2 preamplifier and let the Eversolo DAC Z10 work as both as a DAC and preamp, followed by my Chord Electronics Ultima 3 monoblock amplifiers and by the Rado TD 2.2 speakers that you can see behind me. The first thing I observed is that I needed to crank the volume considerably higher because the voltage output of the DAC Z10 is considerably lower compared to my Rockna DAC, and also the preamp section of my Pre-2 is also a bit stronger. So I needed to crank the volume a little bit higher, but that wasn't a problem at all because I still have 1000 watts on those monoblock amplifiers. So I was easily cruising even at half the volume, and that was really not a problem. The preamp section sounded good, and I never felt that something is really missing or something that is messing with my music. The sound was still organic, the sound was still quite mellow. I couldn't say that some of the magic was lost, or that the sound collapsed on me, or that the noise floor was higher than usual. None of that happened, and it still sounded like the DAC Z10 I'm describing for a couple of minutes now. The only thing I observed is that it didn't sound as tight and as resolving as my own preamp. Other than that, I see no reason to invest in a dedicated preamplifier once you have the DAC Z10 on your table or on your audio rack. Some of you are wondering how the DAC Z10 compares with one particular DAC I liked in 2025, the Tapping D900, which is basically their best DAC to date. This won't be a long comparison, but one that will clearly state the difference. The DAC Z10 costs $1980 while D900 costs $1800, so it's by $180 cheaper. DAC Z10 is a AKM-based Delta Sigma DAC, and also D900 is a single bit DAC. Comparing these two was easier than expected because you see those Rado TD 2.2 are incredibly detailed and transparent sounding. Actually, one of the most detailed speakers I've heard in my life. So I'm using this to to enjoy my music, but also to make comparisons and also, to make my evaluations. And all of that is very easy with these loudspeakers. And right off the bat, I could sense that the D900 was a little bit tighter sounding. It was a little bit faster sounding as well. So I'd say that the transit response is a little bit faster on the D900, and the grip over the drivers is also a little bit tighter. The other difference that I felt is that there is a little bit extra nuance coming forward from the D900, so I can hear maybe up to 5% additional information on the D900, so clearly is a little bit more detailed. However, when it comes to naturalness, when it comes to spatial information, soundstage, and depth, this is where the DAC Z10 is just on another league, and there is not a minor difference. The difference is actually quite big. The tonal balance is just better on the DAC Z10. It sounds richer, sweeter, the bass is more powerful, it's harder slamming, the mid-range is sweeter as well, and there is a little bit less glare in the upper treble. The soundstage is also by at least, I'd say, 20% wider. The sound is deeper as well. It sounds much closer to our reference super expensive DAC, let's say so. While it's not as detailed and not as clean, not as tight sounding, I believe sounding bigger and more enjoyable and more natural is, at least for me, more important. The Z10 had a bit more bass rumble, the vocals were spookier sounding. I say that it was more lifelike sounding, much closer to my Rockna compared to the topping D900. The stage was wider and the sound was deeper, and it was nicely showing me the difference between a live or a studio recording. Last but not least, their preamp sections performed similarly, with the exception that their DAC section was again leaving a stain on the overall performance, as the sound got more organic on the Z10 and a bit more forward, more linear and detailed on the D900. Last but not least, I could enjoy a couple of headphones on the DAC Z10, something that I cannot do on the topping D900 since it doesn't have a headphone output. And lastly, we have a slightly different design, which is very personal. D900 is slightly smaller with a smaller display. DAC Z10 is bigger, it's looking like a more serious DAC, and it also has a much bigger touchscreen with big view meters. It's all personal. Pick the one that you like the most. Eversolo impressed me with their DAC Z8 back in the day, sounding detailed and also punchy in the bass. All of these skills, of course, moved over to the DAC Z10, but right now we have some additional things like sounding more natural, sounding bigger, even more detailed this time around, and we also have some additional features like an active preamplifier, like a headphone amplifier, and also on the inside it was improved quite a lot, having a better layout and a better component selection. The sound matured as well, and from a somewhat neutral sounding DAC Z8 and DMP A6, we arrived at a more effortless presentation that highlights a lot more than mere technical performance. I no longer think about these weird terms, technical performance, transit response, soundstage, when listening to the DAC Z10. All I want is just relax, have a drink, and listen to music as much as I can. Watch those view meters go wild to the rhythm of the music, and overall this is a powerful DAC and preamp with a headphone amplifier tucked inside as an extra accessory. Considering that all of these can be had for less than $2,000 or euros, it makes me happy, it gets my stamp of approval, and it works flawlessly with smartphones, PCs, hi-fi streamers, CD or Super Audio CD transports. Okay everyone, I hope you enjoyed my review. Please consider liking, disliking, maybe subscribing to this channel if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next week with what I believe is the best sounding portable digital audio player that I tried so far. See you very soon. Keep rocking.